Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the BlueFort Blueprint. Today we're going to be talking about credit cards. As mundane as the topic sounds, credit cards can be a great tool to further your financial planning and fetch you a lot of benefits and advantages. So that's what we're going to be speaking about today. Today we have Sayam, and instead of Viraj, Akshay is joining us because Akshay is a little bit of a credit card connoisseur. He knows a lot, so we thought let's bring him in and discuss this topic with him today. So, guys, where should we start? Credit cards, right? A lot of clients ask us all sorts of questions. Which credit card should I buy? How much should I use? What percentage of my expenses should be in credit cards? So let's unravel all of that today. Should we start off with how to use credit cards in the best way possible? Maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I think we can start with why I use credit cards in the first place.
Right.
What I see, what's happening a lot is now people are preferring to use UPI a lot for smaller transactions, even for larger transactions. You just quickly pull out your phone, scan the code, and send the money. While that's very convenient, you are actually missing out on a lot that credit cards offer. So maybe we can discuss the pros and cons of credit cards. Few things which are obvious is that a lot of cards give you reward points, they give you cashback. You're missing out on those things. There are a lot of other features that credit cards offer as well. They give you travel insurance, they give you vouchers, they give you milestone benefits. The more fancy ones, they give you 1+1 on food, on drinks, they give you golf courses and things like that. So using a credit card is definitely something that you should be looking at more frequently, not just you doing UPI just based on convenience, and cards themselves are quite convenient anyway.
No, that's correct. Honestly, I don't see a lot of, to be very honest, I don't see a lot of cons in that. To be honest, there's just advantages of having a credit card. If I think deep, then probably I think one of the disadvantage is that it sort of gives you that ability, right? Probably that spending ability that you usually don't have.
Yeah.
Right. Again, that I'd say that also comes under the branch of discipline then.
Yeah.
I mean, paying your bill on time, all of these things comes under the same branch. So I believe there's no, to be honest, I mean, anything that you buy something for like 1,000, 10,000 or even 20,000 for that matter. Why do it through your bank account, right? When you can get those, if not equivalent, you get those as reward points and something that you can use while you travel or for your flight tickets or anything for that matter.
One very important benefit that people often forget is the protection you get with a credit card.
Correct, yeah.
When you're spending on something, or say if a transaction has been done and it's a fraud, for most other transactions, debit card or UPI, the money is gone from your account. With a credit card, it's not. It's a credit transaction. You can immediately call up your bank and say that this is not done through me, and that money comes back to you. Or rather, it never gets debited from your account. So that protection is also quite significant because the bank is making the payment for you. You're getting an interest-free period of up to 50 days, and you can pay that down the line. And if in case of any fraud, you're protected. There are a few cons though of using the credit card. It requires a lot of discipline for a lot of people. Knowing how much money they have in their account, how much they're spending, that gives them a certain kind of subconscious limit that this is how much I should or shouldn't be spending. With a credit card, your credit limit is much higher, and the fear is that you can end up spending a lot. There are certain charges also which you may not be aware about, so some hidden charges, that's something to look out for. If you're doing these basic things right, making the payment on time, then the pros far outweigh the cons in using a credit card.
Can we get a little bit more into detail about on the pros, the advantages, and a little more practical tips on how to use them? Because I know that you use your credit card extensively. So let's say somebody wants to make the most of whatever credit card the bank has to offer to them. Can you give cashback, reward points, but how to use them? How to use the lounge access? What are the different credit cards available to be able to cash on these advantages?
Yeah, so hacks basically, credit card hacks. I think the first thing to do to really understand is what your spending patterns are, how much you're spending on average per month, and what you're spending on, whether it's travel, it's lifestyle, it's food, things like that. And then understanding what credit cards you have and what benefits and features they offer. Based on that, then you kind of mix and match your spends. There are a lot of benefits and hacks that are available for the credit card. Some very obvious ones which I use a lot are that when you're spending, rather than just swiping your card anywhere where you could get maybe 1% to 3% reward points, if you buy a voucher for that spend on Amazon or Zomato or Swiggy, and you make the payment through that voucher, even for Make My Trip, for example, you could get 5x or even 10x reward points in some cases through platforms like SmartBuy. So that means that everything that you're spending on, if you first do it through the voucher, you could get up to 15% cashback, 10%, 15% in certain cards, and that is significant, right? Everything you're spending on is discounted by 10 to 15%.
That's true. I mean, the same goes for like you just spoke about. I just like to add, in terms of the spend analyzing bit. I believe one of the hack is that what you can do is sort of understand, there are a lot of fintech companies right now. What they do is they can analyze on the basis of your bank statement. What they can do is basically track where your spends are, basically.
Yeah.
If it's travel, if it's groceries, electronics, this, that. So on the basis of that, when you get that data, on the basis of that, you can sort of get a credit card that maximizes your return. Say, for example, I like electronics, right? If I want to get something in through Amazon or through Chroma or something of that sort. So a credit card that offers me the best rates, or rather the best cashbacks for these fields, that'd be great for me, right? So that is something that I believe is a very good hack, wherein firstly what you do is get your spend analyzer done. And on the basis of that, get a credit card that fits you right.
Can you name some of these fintech companies that do that analysis for you?
So the one that I usually use is through where I get my thing done is usually Cred.
Okay.
Right. And to be honest, that does not just give you the spend analyzer bit. It also helps you sort of track. Right. One of the things that I do that sort of helps me with payment, on-time payment, is that I have synced all of my credit card bills on one single day.
Right.
So I know this is, say for example, it's the 2nd of every month, right? So I know my bill cycle is from 2nd to 2nd. So I know my bill comes out on the 3rd, and then immediately that's when I clear off all of my payments.
Okay.
So in that sense, I don't really have any interest or anything of that sort. I keep, say for example, if you have multiple cards and you sort of forget one here and there. So I think apps like these sort of help you in that.
So let's say, for instance, somebody spends a lot on travel, or there's one other person who spends a lot on shopping, right, for purchasing of, whatever, appliances or electronics and stuff, like gadgets and stuff like that. So can we get into detail about so I understand there are travel cards, right, specifically just for flight travel. There are cards specifically only for fuel, for example. Then there's cards specifically. What other types of cards are there? And then that also then begs the question, how many cards should one have, right? Because one important thing I remember reading somewhere was that all of this, of course, affects your credit score, right? And none of us want our credit scores to be impacted in a negative way.
Right.
So apparently inquiring for too many credit cards also affects your credit score, right?
That's true.
So how many cards should one have? And how much of your monthly income should you be spending on these cards?
So the thing is, there are two myths that are sort of floating in the market. One is they're actually related to each other. One is that if you just one credit card is enough for all, right? And the second one is having too many credit cards, like you said, having too many credit cards sort of lowers your credit score. Now, this is partially true. Now, what happens in this case is, if you inquire, basically they're called hard inquiries. When you put in your PAN and stuff, they're hard inquiries. If you have too many hard inquiries in a very small time duration, in a very small time frame, then yes, there is a possibility of your credit card credit score sort of dipping. Yeah. However, if you do it in an interval of say 6 months, or maybe even a year, there's no such thing. In fact, it helps you to have more credit cards. So I'll tell you why. What happens is, At the end of the day, to increase, one of the hacks to sort of increase your credit score is to spend approximately 30% of your available credit limit.
Okay.
Right? Now, in this case, what happens is when you have multiple credit cards, your total available limit also increases. And obviously the amount that you spend on a monthly basis is almost going to remain the same, right? So in this case, your available limit increases, but how much you spend remains the same. So you're sort of spending lesser and lesser, which sort of in
So you're
turn
saying that
increase.
actually having multiple cards in a way is beneficial for you.
Yes. It in terms of increasing your credit score, it definitely helps.
So this is a myth that you should not have more than
Yeah,
two cards.
I
Or you should have only
definitely,
one card.
definitely.
If it gives you distinct advantages based on
Absolutely,
your spending, then
yes.
you should definitely be able to. You should apply for more credit cards.
Yeah, I mean, like, we shouldn't go berserk about it. Like,
Correct.
don't like.
But as long as you're making your payments on time and you're able to schedule your payments, then you should.
It makes sense. Yes, it
And
increases
that
your credit score.
30% wala rule, that is quite interesting. So you should try and keep your spends at 30% of your total available limit.
Yes.
So again,
Technically, try to keep it lower than that.
keep it lower. Okay.
Keep it lower than 30%.
Maxing out your limit or going too close to your limit again hampers your credit score.
It won't hamper. I wouldn't say it would hamper. But see, we're talking about increasing our credit score here. I said, like, if you have more and more credit cards and your available limit increases and you're spending that much, right? So your expense, the percentage that you're spending through your entire credit limit decreases drastically. When that happens, your credit score increases.
Okay.
Okay.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's very helpful.
So I'd like to add just one nuance to this. In having multiple different cards, it's not that you should have multiple different premium cards, because premium cards come with an annual fees, come with a minimum spending requirement. If you're spreading yourself too thin with premium cards, then you're going to end up paying a lot of annual fees. What you should have is one premium card, like an Infinia, like an ICICI Emerald, if you can get that, or Axis Burgundy and so on. And then the other cards you have, make them the co-branded ones. So if you travel a lot, make it a co-branded to an airlines or like a Marriott Bonvoy or something like that. If your spending is a lot on fuel, then an Indian Oil or something like that. If you shop a lot online on Amazon, then an Amazon co-branded one, because then those offer you significant benefits for those specific spends. So that's the nuance, that have one base premium card where you do all other spends, and then specific spends you can do on the co-branded cards.
To be honest, if you have the Infinia or the Emerald Private, I don't think you need any other card.
Yeah, so that's
the problem is it's too difficult to fit into the criteria. You need to just go with what the banker says. Like, I'm pretty sure he'll have some.
I think that's a good point. Then let's get into the details of what cards are available in the market.
Right.
Okay, and depending upon your income, right, and your ITR returns.
Right.
What card you can get and what you should aspire to get, right? So I think the best card right now is HDFC Infinia.
No.
Slightly better than that. It's just come out. Like, I think it's been like 3 months or so.
For the longest time, HDFC Infinia was the best.
Okay.
But now ICICI Emerald has come out, which is slightly better.
Okay.
Just in a direct competition with Infinia.
Yeah.
If Infinia gives you about 15-16%, this gives you about 18%. On certain spends through their platform.
A lot of our clients and others that we speak to, our friends, they complain that we don't get the Infinia. For that, Sayyam, I think you had used an interesting negotiation tactic with the banks, where at the end of the day, it is a deal, right? And it is negotiation, right? So it's not that while they do have their prescribed parameters of who should be getting the Infinia card, but if you maintain a good relationship with the bank and how you've been, that's something I've not been able to do, but you have done that, then the likelihood of you getting that card increases. So what does it mean to have a good relationship with the bank?
It's extremely important to have a good relationship, and it's not something that just happens in a year or 2 years. It's something I've built over many, many years. And what I've done, or how I've done that, is I've had HDFC as my primary bank. It doesn't necessarily have to be HDFC for everyone, but whatever your primary bank is, have everything through that, all your banking through that. And that really builds up a relationship. One, to of course get credit cards, to increase your credit limit, get all these other offers, to upgrade your credit card. So I started off with like the most basic card, and I kept upgrading until I eventually got to Infinia. Two, even in case you end up missing a payment or you're delayed, you can get those charges waived. If you have a good relationship, you call up your RM and say that this happened for the first time, it won't happen again, and that actually can save you quite a bit of money. So having a good banking relationship with one particular bank significantly improves how much outlay you'll end up having and the benefits that you get. Yes, a lot of these cards have specific criteria in terms of income and so on. There are other ways to do it as well, where you offer to increase your relationship with the bank, whether it's through an FD or an insurance product. Sometimes those kind of things work. Of course, you need to have a basic minimum relationship. And just to sweeten the deal for them, because they're also looking for business, you may want to do something, or they may suggest doing something where, like a policy or a plan, which ends up pushing you over the line. You got to weigh the pros and cons, what the costs to that are versus what the benefits I'll get through the card. And if you do get something like ICICI Emerald or HDFC Infinia, the benefits will far outweigh the costs many times.
Interesting, yeah. One more, when you're shopping out, you're trying to buy an expensive electronic or an appliance, at a Chroma or a Vijay sales, a lot of times you see the zero interest EMI option, right? What does that mean? Is it really zero interest? What are the pros and cons of actually taking that? Because again, credit card is the only one that actually offers you that advantage where you can break up a large payment into several different months. So what does that mean? What is that zero interest EMI?
Basically, the zero EMI or what they either say zero cost EMI or like a low cost EMI. The thing about that is you are going to be charged an EMI, irrespective, right? At the end of the day, when you're taking an EMI, when you're just equating your monthly and sort of paying out your the amount that you have to pay out, you're going to sort of have to pay that interest, right? Now, what they do is what happens in a credit card, especially when you sort of use that for your low cost EMI, is that they give you that discount. The total amount of your interest that you're going to end up paying, say over like 3 months or 6 months or something of that sort, what they do is they'll just take a total of all of those interest and then just give you that discount. Okay. So technically, you don't have to pay any interest.
So is it something worth opting for? Is it something that we should take as customers?
So again, there's some nuance to that. When you are purchasing the appliance through Vijay Sales Chroma and they have these deals, at that point you opt for the EMI. Yes, it's a good idea because it ends up for you being more or less a zero cost EMI. If you end up buying it outright and then when your credit card bill comes, they will prompt you, convert this large purchase to an EMI. Don't do that, because that comes at a very high interest cost. The interest in credit cards can go upwards of 20% annually, 30% even. So at the time of purchase, absolutely use that deal. But later, do not convert any of your credit card dues to EMIs, whether it's a single purchase, you get those prompts, or whether it's your credit card bill as a whole, where you make a minimum payment and then you use EMIs to pay off the whole bill. That is definitely not a good idea. That is very, very interest heavy.
Also, one more small thing is that the monthly payments, first is either you should probably set up an auto debit so that you don't forget to pay. Each missed installment again affects your credit score and you don't want that to happen too often. And second is there's two options. One is total payment, total amount due, and whether you'd like to pay that or minimum amount due. And they don't really mention that the minimum amount due comes with a lot of charges and interest costs. Right?
No, so I think that's one of the biggest.
Yeah, you should always pay the total amount due.
For sure. I think in the entire credit card industry, I think that's one of the biggest scams.
Correct.
We should not look at that at all. The minimum
it's
amount
a meaningless
due,
number. Basically.
Yeah, it's a meaningless number.
It's a misrepresentation because minimum due does not come with that caveat. A lot of times you don't see the bank actually writing that this comes with that interest or those charges. So people think minimum amount due just means that I can pay it whenever later. And a lot of people, I'm surprised, don't actually still know this. So this is something that people should know for sure.
I think there's one thing to that. It's that if you fail to pay your minimum amount for like 2 months straight, then I think your credit card gets cancelled and then you're pulled out for a higher investigation sort of a thing. I think that's the only purpose of it. But to be honest, it just doesn't make any sense, especially to your repayment sort of method.
So just set up an auto debit.
Yeah, just set up an auto debit and just yeah.
The last thing that I would just suggest all of our viewers is whatever cards you have, just Google it, go to the bank's website, and we often talk about hidden charges when it comes to comes to credit cards, but there are a lot of hidden benefits that most people end up missing out on. When I was preparing for this episode of the podcast, I was going through the benefits of my card, and I'm just like, oh wow, there's so many things I haven't used at all. A lot of premium cards, for example, will have travel insurance built into it. This came to light with the recent Air India crash, and a lot of cards that people had that give them a cover of like 1 CR. So insurance is significant. There are like again, Infinia gives you Club Marriott membership. It gives you 1+1 on ITC hotels, and I've not used any of these. So I would strongly recommend for everyone, go Google your cards, look at what is there, and make the most of it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please like and share and subscribe if you found this helpful. Please watch our other episodes. Thank you so much.